So we're going to get started. Good evening. My name is Kristen Lazaro. You've been getting lots of emails from me about various things, especially if you're a junior. So it's nice to see you all here tonight, and thank you for coming out. Tonight we have our college admissions panel, and the representatives are going to be speaking not particularly about their college, but kind of about their college, but the process in general and what they see. So they're not going to necessarily be school-specific questions. We do have a set of questions. I'm going to moderate it, and then at the end, if we have some extra time, you'll be able to ask your own questions. But I think we have a pretty comprehensive list of questions. So I'm just going to have the panelists introduce themselves and their college, and we'll just start on the end with Mr. Hamill.
Hi everyone, I'm Tom. I'm one of the admissions officers at Harvard.
My name is Chris O'Brien. I'm Associate Director of Admissions at Boston College.
Hi there, I'm Jolie Chan. I'm a Senior Assistant Director at Northeastern University.
Hi, I'm Leah Broderick with the University of Alabama. I did not travel from Alabama today. I actually live in Belmont, Massachusetts, and I'm a regional recruiter, so I take care of all the students from the New England area and help them down, so I'm a local.
And hello, my name is Jess Reza. I'm the Admissions Recruitment Counselor at North Shore Community College.
And hi, I'm Jacqueline DeChara. I'm one of the Assistant Directors at UMass Lowell. And it's good to be back. I actually am a former Miles River Middle School and Hamilton Wenham Regional High School student myself, so brings back a lot of memories being in here.
You're always a general, Jackie. All right, so we're going to just jump right in for the first question. The first question is for Tom. Tom, the application numbers are overwhelming these days. How can an application stand out, and how do admissions people handle all of them?
Yeah. So I think there's several different ways an application can stand out. The first one is one that I think gets a fair amount of attention at times, and that's where a student has a specific talent in one particular area, whether that's for academics. And when it comes to academics, someone who's distinguishing themselves based primarily on academics is not just going to have really, really strong test scores and grades, but they're probably also going to have some kind of scholarship or research that they've done, where sometimes the faculty at the college will look at it and say, wow, this is pretty amazing. This is someone who could really have a big impact in the field, while they're in college and beyond. So, that's one. I think outside the classroom, specific skills, whether it's in music, whether it's in sports, in the arts, community service, leadership, things like that. Students with one specific talent in one area can distinguish themselves that way. But I think one thing that gets overlooked a lot is students that really kind of are great all-arounders, and I think that's a way that many students stand out. And just speaking for us, we admit many students like that, where they're certainly not the best in the world at one specific thing. They might not even be the best in the country or the state or sometimes even the school at one specific thing, but they're really good at a lot of different things. And they combine that with evidence of being really great people, and that's what we're looking for, is people who are not just going to contribute in the classroom, but outside the classroom as well. So those are just a few ways I think applicants can stand out. In terms of how schools handle all of the applications, that's definitely going to depend on the school. There are some schools where the processes will be very, very different. I would just speak for the process that I know, which is at Harvard, and say that it's a combination of both individual and group committee review. So there will be individuals reviewing these applications, commenting on strengths and weaknesses, gathering information that would be helpful, and then it's a group of many different people. For us, it's about 35 getting together in a room and coming up with a class as a group. So I think one of the great things about the process, particularly now, is that we have a lot of time to review applicants, often at several different stages, many different times. So we can often collect information throughout the process that can really help us make a difference and help make a difference in these decisions. So again, it'll depend on the school, but it's some combination of that often. And at the end of the day, most of the time it's human beings evaluating other human beings.
Thanks, Tom. Chris, what are the best sources of information when starting the college search? What are common mistakes or overlooked details during the college search?
Great. I think the college search starts tonight. To sit in a room with some wicked smart people up here and get used to the vernacular and terminology and timeline of the college search and the admissions process. You know, this can be overwhelming. People get really stressed out about this. I go through it every year and I never get stressed out, but I guess people do. So you need to get used to it. Your sons and daughters, you guys who are students, have worked too hard to have this process done to you. You need to participate in it. And you deserve a place for college that will suit what you are and give you room to grow into something that you're worthy to become. So you can't, there are no shortcuts. You have to start with yourself and learn about yourself and understand if you're equipped to go far away from home, if you can stand out at a large urban university, or if you'll be stifled at a small, rural, liberal arts college. You got to ask yourself a few tough questions, and I know that sucks. Who likes to ask themselves tough questions? You'd rather have someone just tell you, when you graduate here, you just go to some college. But think of the opportunities. Most of us are doing this because we really feel like college has been a transitional part of our lives. I went to college 25 years ago, and I never left. College is awesome. And we want you to participate. And unfortunately, there's no magazine, there's no list of colleges that you can use to cheat your way to get to someplace. You need to dig in and you need to learn about it. And you can't just look at the schools that compete for national championships. You can't just look at the schools that are #1 party schools in the country. You have to learn about yourself, go to college campuses, and see how you feel. Luckily, you're in Massachusetts. Luckily, on the East Coast, you see tremendous places of every different category, big and small, and private and public, and very specific niche schools and very general land-grant universities, and you can see it all. But unfortunately, there's no system to game. There's no way you can cheat yourself through it. There's no one that's going to tell you where to go and make it easy for you. The work that comes with it should be rewarding work because, again, if you work this hard and you're looking forward to a very important time in your life and you deserve it, then you need to get involved, get to know yourself, get on college campuses and see what feels right.
Thank you, Chris. Julie, how do I make a list of colleges or universities to apply to? And how can I tell a university that I'm interested?
I really like this question. So when you're creating a list of colleges to look at least from the first thing that I like to think about is, okay, what location? Do you want to be close to home? Do you want to try something different? So we're all on the East Coast. Do you want to try West Coast? Do you want to try the South? That's a good way to narrow down the schools that you want to look at. And then next is starting to think about, like, what are you interested in studying? What programs are out there? And which of these schools in the regions that you're looking at have those programs, have a wide range of programs, or that specific program if you really know what you want to do in college as well as for your postgraduate degree or career. And then to reiterate what Chris said, I think that it's really important to visit campuses and get a feel for what the social scene is like, what the campus community is like, and seeing if that you could picture yourself there. And I know that sounds really cheesy, but I truly think that's a really important thing to do is immerse yourself in that environment and see if you can see yourself spending the next 4 or however many years there. And I also think it's really important to look at the financial aid support that each university that you're looking at offers. I know that it is a family decision, so making sure that you're doing a little bit of research on that beforehand as you're carving out that list is really important. And then in terms of making yourself stand out, so if a college is saying that there is an optional essay or an interview, has an interview process, try and opt into that. I know it says optional, but it really does show that you have that extra interest by participating in these optional things that because you've been able to put yourself out there and take that extra step to show that, yes, I am interested in X college.
Great, thank you. Leah, what is the best way to discuss my extracurricular involvement? What about service or work experience? And how about summer programs or other family responsibilities? Where do they all fit?
Absolutely, this is a great question. So on the other side of it, there are some universities that don't even look at that. So if you aren't a big person who was involved in stuff here but still want to get into a college, you don't have to. But there are a lot of schools that will require that, and if you want to get scholarships or other things, you will have to have that on your resume or in the application. So the best way, I think, is to start now. Get an Excel spreadsheet on your computer and note all of your activities that you've done. You can write the hours that you've spent, how many years or months you've been in those, and start that now, just so that when you do apply to the universities and for scholarships that need that information, you just have that Excel file right on your computer ready to go, and then you can keep editing that throughout the summer. If you have a summer job or do any service work this summer, you can keep adding to it. But you're going to save yourself a lot of pain in the fall if you have that already made up now, and then continue to grow it. What was the second part of that?
Oh, sorry. Did we talk about summer programs, or what about family responsibilities?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a valid thing to put in there as well. Make sure that all your activities, if it's like an acronym that's very just kind of oriented around your school, that we wouldn't have any idea what it actually means. Make sure that you're able to explain it and say what you've done and why you did it and all of this stuff below it as well. But I think that's the best way.
I'm going to have you introduce yourself, Mary.
Hi, I'm Mary Dunn. I was the Dean of Admissions at Salem State. I've been in the business for about too many years. And I am now in partnerships and collaborations. But I've done the admissions business for a long time.
Okay, great. So, Mary, my question for you is, what are the state guidelines for admissions to state colleges and universities?
Okay, the state guidelines are pretty direct. They will tell you exactly what you need in order to be admitted to the university. Not every major, but what you need at least for a beginning. And that would be 4 years of English. 1, 2, 3, 4. It would be 4 years of mathematics, inclusive of one in the senior year. So it can't be 4 and then I don't take anything my senior. It has to be all 4 years. Science, 3 years of laboratory science. Foreign language, 2 years of foreign language, same language. Social science, 2 years of social science, one of which is U.S. history, and then electives from the above, at least 2 more, for a total of 16 units. We recalculate every single GPA for every single student to make sure that you are all on the same playing field. An A in a college prep course equals a 4.0, an A in an honors course equals a 4.5, an A in an AP course equals a 5.0. Every GPA for every year is calculated till we get a total GPA, and that is the GPA that we look at for admissions.
Great. I'm just going to toss that up just a little bit to the rest of the panelists. In terms of GPA, how do your colleges handle the GPA? Is it always recalculated? How do you look at students for that on transcripts?
So at UMass Lowell, since we're a public university as well, we recalculate it the same way. So we're looking at those 16 units, and it's, again, the weighted for honors, AP. And that AP is the same way that we would weight a dual enrollment course. So if you take a course at North Shore, we see that as a full letter grade bump. So we take all of those courses and the rigor of your classes into consideration.
At North Shore Community College, the majority of our programs are open admissions, open enrollment. So as long as you have evidence of completing high school, so for you all, final high school transcript, or as you're applying, your most recent high school transcript, and we'll just look for that final one once you are finished, you would be accepted and admitted into a program. So GPA will not play a factor. Where we do have some programs that are special admissions, such as the health professions programs, with some of the academic requirements, they would look for a C or better letter grade.
We don't recalculate anything. We endeavor to understand what a grade point average means within the context of Hamilton-Wenham and sort of compare a student based on what they have done to what the best possible record they could have achieved. So we want to understand the students in the context, and we'll take whatever weighting is given, we'll take however classes are computed, and we'll just look at a student based on how strong they could have performed at Hamilton Wenham, not really recalculating or fiddling with it that much.
And I would just add, our process is very similar to what Chris was talking about, the way we consider GPA at Harvard. The only thing I would add to that is just that I think applicants can sometimes get very, very focused on their specific GPA or sometimes class rank, if schools do that, and might say, if my GPA was only this much different, whether it's a 10th of a point or a 100th of a point or whatever, that's going to make a difference in my admissions process. And I'm here to tell you that those sorts of considerations, whether it's a couple of tenths of a point or a few places in class rank, has never been and is never the deciding factor in a student's application. We're looking at you as a whole person. You are more than a GPA, you're more than test scores on a sheet of paper. So as Chris was saying, we look at what your school reports to us. We consider it in that context of the opportunities you've had available to you, and we're looking at you as a student and as a person outside the classroom as well.
Northeastern does recalculate GPA similar to Salem State and UMass Lowell does. So honors add a 0.5 and then AP courses add full point.
At Alabama, it's a very cut and dry process as far as admissions standards. You need the certain GPA and you need a certain SAT or test score. So as long as you're above that, it doesn't really matter how much higher you are until you get to a 3.5. That's where our scholarship cutoff is. And so if you're above that, great. If you're borderline to that 3.5, then I can work with your counselor. We can work to figure out if we need to recalculate it if you don't already have weighted added in your transcript. Does that make sense?
All right, thank you. So I'm going to move to Jess. What are the benefits associated with attending a community college?
Yeah, I think there are several benefits to attending a community college. Obviously, the major one being that cost. So what you will find as you're exploring and looking into various institutions that you're looking into, it can be pretty pricey for that education. So oftentimes we do see individuals looking to start off at the community college level so that they can save on those costs and then decide to transfer once they either complete a year or their full associate's degree. We also have individuals who, maybe are not looking long-term in terms of transferring right away, but are looking for, shorter-term options so that they can begin entering the workforce. So with the community college, often many programs may be very professional or technical in nature, which will give you those skills to allow you to begin working within a year or two, depending on that program of choice. The flexibility that's available within a community college system. We may see individuals, I know speaking personally for North Shore Community College and more likely as well in other community colleges, where we have working professionals or students who are coming in who are still looking to work part-time or full-time or have families that they need to take care of. And so having that flexibility within the community college system where there are evening courses, online courses, hybrid courses, and the community college system being sensitive to that and understanding that our populations may not be similar to that of a traditional four-year institution. And I think as well, sometimes there may be some individuals who might have struggled in high school, so maybe you do not have the preparation or the academics that would allow you to get that direct admissions into a four-year school of your choice. And so with the community college level, you're able to, with many of them being open enrollment for their programs, you're able to kind of begin getting some college coursework under your belt with our faculty who are really going to be there and passionate and making sure that you succeed. But then thinking about, starting there and before you do transfers so that you have some evidence of saying to, XYZ four-year school that, you know what, I might have struggled in high school, but here I am. I've taken some college level courses. I have been able to prove that evidence, with my 3.0 or B average. I've bumped that grades up. I've bumped those grades up, but not only that, but they're now at the collegiate level. So I am able to handle the coursework that is at your school. So I think those are certainly some of the benefits that you should certainly consider if you're thinking too about the community college.
Great, thank you. Jackie, how important is the senior course selection?
Yeah, so it's April, so is that coming up soon, I would think?
We've just completed it at the high
Okay,
school.
all right, so we can make some changes and your counselors might get mad at us. So you heard from all of us about how we look at your high school transcripts, how we recalculate your GPAs if we are doing that. But the high school transcript is a big piece of the application process when you're applying to most of these institutions. So your senior year is really the chance to end high school on a strong note, show us how you can challenge yourselves. So we want to see you taking courses that are going to be challenging to you as an individual. So not everyone in this room is going to be taking honors courses senior year, or even AP courses senior year, because a college prep course in calculus or pre-calculus might be challenging to you. And we'll see that from where you started in 9th, 10th, and 11th grade, and what courses you're taking in your senior year. What you also want to think about is, are you going to be applying to one of these institutions or any institution for a specific major, or are you applying undeclared because you're really not sure what you want to study? At UMass Lowell specifically, if you're applying to any of our majors in engineering or sciences, then we're going to require you to have at least pre-calculus, if not calculus, in your senior year. So that's something that you can decide now. If you're thinking more about a statistics or a trig course, maybe change that to a pre-calculus course. We're also going to want to see you taking physics and chemistry if you're applying to those programs as well. So if you're choosing, maybe you want to take one honors or one AP course and you're trying to figure out which course to do that in, think about what you're majoring in. If you're going to be studying business or economics, and Hamilton Wenham might offer an honors economic course, register for that class maybe over an honors foreign language. The other thing I will say is that when we look at the rigor of the classes, so whether it's honors, college prep, AP, we're also looking at the core classes. So Mary Dunn mentioned some of the courses that we require, and she said 2 years of foreign language, 2 years of history. If you're taking that third and fourth foreign language, third and fourth history in your senior year, those are counted as academic classes, so those become key components as well for what we're looking at. So I would just say that find the courses that challenge you. And I know we talked about AP and honors courses being weighted higher, but listen to what your counselors have to say. So they don't, we want to see you be successful. So if you're registering for 4 or 5 AP classes, and then we see you get a D or withdraw from it, we would rather you take that course as a college prep level and get an A. So we want to see you do well in the classes. So just really think about how much you're putting on your plate in senior year, especially if you have an after-school job or on a sports team or extracurricular activities.
Great, thank you. Tom, back to you. When is an early application appropriate? Are there different types of early plans? Do all colleges have them? And is it better to apply for the early actions, or is it better to apply for like regular decision?
Yeah, so I think for the first question, when is an early application appropriate? first of all, when you present a complete application, right? Because for a lot of these earlier programs, obviously the deadlines are going to be typically before January 1st, which is normally the regular action deadline. So if you haven't had the chance to take standardized tests for schools that require them, or if you haven't had the chance to finish your common application essay before November 1st, obviously it's not going to make sense to apply early, right? So what we like to say is, at least from our standpoint, apply when you present the strongest application possible. That's going to mean different things for different students. And when it comes to the different kinds of early programs, again, I feel like I'm going to give this answer a lot tonight, but it really depends on the school. And some schools will have what are called early decision programs, and typically early decision is a binding program. So what that means is if you apply under an early decision program, often you're signing an agreement with your parents and your counselor that says, if I get into this school, that's it, that's all, I'm done, I'm coming to your school next year. So you as a student and as a family have to do the research to know, if you get in here, is this a place that you really want to go? Looking at it from a financial perspective as well, that's a consideration, regardless, of course, of where you're choosing to apply and when, but that really matters too in terms of affordability. There's another program out there called Early Action often, and typically an Early Action program will not be binding. So again, I hate to pile on the homework assignments. I know that all of you probably have more than enough homework as it is, but depending on the schools that you're interested, you really do need to do your homework and figure out which of these programs might be right for you. I think sometimes one advantage to choosing an early program is if you've done your research on the school and you really feel like this is a place where you can see yourself for 4 years, if you choose to apply to that school early and you get in early, that might save you time and money in terms of thinking about applying to other colleges. And maybe you have a little bit more free time around the holidays. So that could be one advantage. When it comes to sort of admissions preferences in terms of early programs versus regular programs, again, it's going to depend on the school. Some schools will give no preference in the admissions process because they'll often want the best students regardless of when they apply. So, they won't set aside a certain number of spaces for early versus regular. Other schools will have a preference for students that choose one program over the other. And you should ask. That's something to ask when you take a tour, when you go to an information session at a school. Ask if they have an early program, first of all, because not every school will have one, and ask how they use it sort of in their admissions process, because it can be really helpful for you all to know as you're sort of framing your college selections and going through the process.
Great, thank you. Chris, we talked about this a little bit, so I don't know if there's more I'm sure there's more that you can add. What role do GPA and overall scholastic achievement play in the admissions decision?
When I was thinking about this question, I was thinking about the snow day we had a couple weeks ago, and I had a leadership program within Boston College with some students, BC students, and we had a great day talking about big questions and little questions and leadership theory, and we ate a couple meals and watched a movie together, and they were like, I wish we could do this all the time. And I was like, well, you're here to go to school. I'm sorry about that, but you have homework and tests, and that's what we're doing this for, right? It's not just a camp. It's not just a hotel. We're not just hanging out here. I'm trying to find evidence about how smart you are. And the biggest piece of evidence, the most conclusive piece of evidence, is how you've done in a structure that's similar to college, meaning with a teacher in the front of the classroom, really smart kids around you, and being challenged within the classroom to understand concepts of the sciences, the social sciences, and the humanities, right? So it's pivotal for me to understand what you're doing here in the course of 4 years of high school and look at all the choices you've made when it comes to how smart you are. Now, there are other pieces of evidence you'll hear about tonight where I can find out how smart you are, how you write, how you operate a number 2 pencil, and how you operate within the place in terms of your social intelligence and your leadership and your engagement. These things are part of the process at virtually all the colleges that you're going to apply to. But the most telling piece of evidence is, can you meet the expectations of teachers at a good high school, which is what Hamilton Wenham is. So I'm looking at the school you go to and the reputation of that school academically, the courses you've taken, and the grades you get. Understanding that as you move on meaning sophomore year is more important than freshman year, and junior year is more important than sophomore year. I'm supposed to see this leading up to what your best work will be later in your high school career. Unfortunately, we can't just admit students based on potential. Potential is untested. What I can make decisions on a lot of times is performance. And performance is what you're capable of doing in the classroom day to day and then year to year, and the courses that you choose and the teachers that are here year in and year out. So we're looking for that kind of performance, and we're looking for students to make good choices with their courses. Junior year is the most pivotal year, in my opinion, mostly because if you screw up junior year, there's not enough time senior year to fix anything. Senior year goes by in a flash. Senior year, we only see a fraction of. Senior, you already have a lot of things on your plate by being a senior here at high school and what the college application process asks you. Junior year, you should have figured this out by now and reduce the distractions. Maybe pick some of your own courses instead of what's required of you, and maybe more advanced courses where appropriate. Junior year, you need to kill it, and hopefully you're doing that. You got to get through junior year, like don't get mono, like don't get sick, like get it done. This year, I promise you, the momentum you build in junior year in your academic record will carry the momentum into your senior year. Trust me. So, I mean, we're not looking for babysitters. We're not looking for, one-dimensional people, but we're certainly looking for how smart you are. And that telling piece of information is going to come from what you do at a good, public, comprehensive high school like Hamilton Wenham. I mean, it's as easy as that.
Great, thank you. Julie, what are the advantages associated with experiential cooperative education?
Yeah, sure. So in the context of Northeastern, right? Is
Sure.
that okay? Okay, cool. So experiential learning means that you're not just sitting in the classroom and just reading a textbook or listening to the lectures. Especially at Northeastern, experiential learning means that you're taking what you've learned in the classroom and applying that to the real world. And we have 4 different types of experiential learning at Northeastern. So one is the cooperative education co-op program. We have research, service learning, as well as global study, or that can be looped in with service, research, or co-op as well. In terms of cooperative education, what does that really mean? So co-ops are 6-month periods of full-time employment where students will work 40 hours a week. There'll be an entry-level types of positions, and at Northeastern, students can do up to 3 co-ops during their time at Northeastern. So that means students will get up to 18 months of full-time work experience on their resume before they graduate. This is a really pivotal moment for our students, because they will not only be able to get that work experience on their resume, like I mentioned, but they'll be able to kind of figure out what they like and what they don't like. For their first co-op, they might say, like, I don't know if I really want to work in this small company that we worked at. I want to try a larger company, or I don't really like this specific industry. I want to try something totally out of your comfort zone or different than what you had initially thought you would like. It's an experimental opportunity, and I think it's a great chance for students to learn more about themselves and what they're looking for after graduation. And again, it sets them up really well for when they're looking for postgraduate options, whether that's going to graduate school or applying for a job after graduation.
Great, thank you. Leah, how important is the college essay in the application process, and what makes a good or not so good essay?
Yeah, great question. So again, this question depends on the types of schools that you're applying to. Some schools won't make you write an essay, and then others will definitely require it, and some it's optional as well. So you got to look at those components to it. But like Chris was saying, that the transcript is the big ticket. The essay is like a supplementary and adds to your complete profile. And so I think the most important thing is to show off your writing skills. A lot of students get hung up on, what should I write my essay about? I don't have an idea. But the thing is that the topic doesn't really matter. It's just a matter of you expressing your creative writing or your writing skills wherever they're at, in the best way that you can. So for Alabama, you don't need an essay, so anybody who doesn't want to write one, you don't have to. But I did work for another university or another college, and the best essay that I read was a girl who was walking into her the house that she grew up in as a small child, and her just describing the grains of the wood on the staircase and things like that. So it's such a simple topic of just walking into your house, and the way she described it and wrote it. I think everyone up here who does read essays on a large scale can agree that if it's a topic that you could just change the name for and then replicate it with your friends, that's not going to be the best topic. Sometimes a lot of students write a lot about sports or what's another common one?
Yeah, grandmother's
Yeah, I mean, it's sweet. But trying to, what else? What other? You guys have a?
Yeah, we could toss it up a little bit. It's nice to know that there are some colleges that don't require essays too, and I
yeah.
think that's an important piece for people to hear. So in terms of some of the other schools that do require an essay or through the common application, maybe you can comment a little bit on that.
Sure. So one of the most important pieces of advice I think I can give about the essay, again, at least speaking for how we review it, is don't try to guess what you think we're looking for. And the reason for that is with our process, right, we have, as I said before, multiple people reviewing applications, right? So what I might think is an amazing essay, somebody else who reads the application at the same time or before or after me might look and say, that's the worst essay that I've read in the last 5 years, right? So reasonable people can have disagreements about, what they think constitutes a strong essay. I think how you choose to write about something can be as important as the topic you actually choose. And so, again, you can't guess what the admissions officers are looking for. All you can do is present who you are as clearly, as completely, as thoroughly as you can, and try to tell us something that we might not get from another part of your application. I think that can be a really useful way to use an essay. It's not the only great essay choice to make, right? So again, don't try to guess what specific topic is going to, really resonate with someone, because it might resonate with someone, but it might not resonate with X number of other people in the room. So all you can do is, kind of put yourself forward, as cliche as that sounds, and live with that.
Right, you want to live with your story. If you lament the fact that an SAT score is going to have a say in which colleges you gain admissions to, that could be mitigated, or that can be balanced with, you get this open-ended opportunity to tell your story in an essay form. And it could be past, present, or future. It could be about people you've met or adversity you've overcome. Really, it's very open-ended. And in most of our institutions, with a few exceptions, the interview is going away. The interview doesn't carry as much value. Even in the days when we had alumni interviews at Boston College, we never got a bad review. Alumni would say, oh, he's straight A, he's just like me. Or they say, oh, he's straight C, give him a chance, he's just like I was. So no one ever said anything bad about a student interview. And if you want to interview for these colleges to show that you have potential, show you have a story, the essay is an interview question that you have months to prepare the answer for, and proofread and spell check. And I think we're anxious to hear what you think is the story that will help us understand the distinctiveness of your journey through high school and the experience that you're going to bring outside the classroom, and a test of what you've been through and what kind of things that you can do on a college campus. So it's an opportunity to really tell us the story behind the grades, the SATs, all the things that you've experienced.
Great, thank you. Julie, did you want to add?
Oh, I was just going to say, I didn't really have too much to add to that. I just say that to most students who ask, do you really read the essays? Yes, we do. Even though we had 62,000 applications this year, we did read all of them. And I think that they're my favorite part, because we're reading hundreds and thousands of applications where, we're seeing students take an English class, like math courses. You're participating as a vice president of your class or in debate team. But the essay is really a chance for us to see who you really are and hear your voice, because there's not many places, especially for a school like us or other schools who don't have a supplement or anything like that, to learn more about you beyond that black and white transcript or activities list.
Just one more thing to add. If you're applying on the Common application, it makes it so easy to submit the same application to however many schools you're applying to. Hopefully not too many. But make sure that the essay that you're sending to that institution is the essay that you want to send. So if you end your essay and say, and that's why I want to attend Northeastern University, and you send it to Mass Lowell, Boston College, and Northeastern, Northeastern's going to love that, but the other institutions are going to read that and say, well, does this student really want to attend UMass Lowell? So definitely proofread, change it if it needs to be changed, and always bring the essay back to who you are as a person. So Mary and I laughed and said, students always write about their mother or their grandmother, but how did that shape you as an individual? Because you're going to be the one that's attending the institution. You're the one we're evaluating.
Great, thank you so much, everyone. Mary, what value are previous summer internships or volunteer work in the college admissions process? How do people look at them?
Well, for Salem State, because we really are looking at the student's academic record for high school, I will say that if you wanted to add something, we are not on the Common application, so you have to apply directly through our online application. And so I would say if you're going to add something, make sure that it doesn't say breast cancer walk, which you did once 5 years ago. Make sure that your extracurricular activities are meaningful. If you're working at Walgreens, fabulous. Have you been there more than 2 weeks? Those are the kind, I think for me, when I read a resume or an academic portfolio that you're going to send me, I want to know how long you've done things, how many times you've done things. What participation did you really have in whatever that extracurricular activity was? So that's my preference. I also think, and I tell students all the time, if they're going to write an essay that we don't require, it should start with, as you will see by my high school transcript, I. So it's telling me something, like there are students who maybe got mono in their sophomore year. I don't know that unless you tell me it. So I think that the extracurricular activities are important, plus the work experience. You know, people alleviate the work. And, you know, it's okay with me if you don't go away for a whole summer and, you know, and feed the poor. But it might be important for you that you actually work at Stop and Shop 35 hours a week because you're helping to support your younger brothers and sisters. For me, those are the kind of things that are important. And we don't know that. How do we know that if we're only looking at a high school transcript? So to express more than you want. Letters for me, and I think for probably most of us, a lot of people think because we're state and public institutions, the mayor can write you a letter, or your local, you know, your local somebody, political. It's not, it doesn't mean anything for us. It's really about who you are as a student, and parents, stay out of the process. Sorry, I had to say it.
We're going to get to that question.
Can I just jump in real quick?
Absolutely, Chris, go ahead.
Just about community service, as the only Catholic school up here, we're interested in people going to heaven. So I know all of us are, but we're particularly interested in salvation. And I think all of us, in our ways, in looking at applications, are looking for a generosity of spirit, some of which can be determined through community service. So I mean, if you're looking for things to do, that's not a bad way to spend some time if you get some extra ones. I don't think you should quit the football team to do it or not do your AP homework, but I think a lot of us are looking for that generosity of spirit that comes with engagement and excellence in the classroom. And, you know, I read a lot of applications from the boys at St. John's Prep, and, you know, their essays are like, you know, I volunteer at the daycare to help the kids, but in the end, it's the kids that help me, you know, like stuff like that. But I do think that practicing a generosity of spirit, and that could be being the oldest of 4 children and making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and driving everybody around, or you have a sibling that has special needs, the love and the grace that's in the house with that person. I mean, I think there are a lot of ways that in the application process, while we're looking to identify how smart someone is, I think whether you have a religious affiliation or not, you're looking at a good kid. And good kid usually means there's a generosity of spirit, and I think community service is a direct link, But I think there are a lot of indirect links that we can find that generosity of spirit, and it's something that we talk about in our process. Where's the generosity of spirit there? And again, we're mission-driven. That means something to us. It doesn't always have to mean something for everybody, even though we're all looking for good kids on our campus in whatever way we can find them.
Great, thank you. All right, Jess, what is the Mass Transfer Program?
So the Mass Transfer Program is a collaboration with the community colleges and our state colleges and universities and our UMass system, so the Salem States, UMasses, UMass Lowells. And essentially, it simplifies that transfer process for those individuals who do start off at the community college within the state. So there are different pathways within the Mass Transfer Program. There's the Gen Ed option, so some individuals, they're just looking maybe a year and getting what they call the Gen Ed track, those core courses that you may find in some of the other programs at the state colleges and the UMass school system. There is an A2B or Associate to Bachelor's track or pathway where you are completing your associate's degree at the community college before transferring to the state schools and the UMass schools. And then there's also within the A2B or within the Associate's to Bachelor's, the Commonwealth Commitment, which has some added tuition benefits within that program. As I mentioned, the Mass Transfer Program essentially, like I said, simplifies that transfer process for you. So there is the mass transfer application that you would complete when you are looking to move forward. So not having to do a separate application, in some cases not having to do a separate essay. And the tuition benefits for individuals who may be within the Commonwealth Commitment agreement through mass transfer, based on your GPA, there are tuition freezes that you can take advantage of. So in addition to simplifying that transfer process, that overall cost savings for you and your family is really a great benefit through the Mass Transfer Program as well. And you do want to do some pre-planning through the program, so taking a look at the programs that you're looking to start off at. The Mass Transfer website is an amazing tool. I always go back to it and reference it, and I'll be happy to leave with Ms. Lazaro a pamphlet as well so that you can refer to. But depending on the community college that you start off with, and depending on the program, it is linked with the program for one of the state schools or one of the UMass schools. So you do want to make sure that you're doing your work as well prior to enrolling and making sure that you're selecting the programs and taking the appropriate steps to make sure that your credits will transfer. But for most of really all the programs, those through mass transfer, your courses do transfer into that linked program at the Mass College or UMass school.
Great, thank you. Jackie, what is the role of technology in the admissions process? Does social media ever become a factor in admissions, either in a positive or negative way? Tell us the truth.
Yes, well, it's 2018, so technology and social media play a role in everything, right? So if you were one of the families in Hamilton that lost power on one of those 5 snow days that we had, it felt like everything stopped. It was hard to get any work done. We couldn't read any applications. So it all kind of is involved. So one thing that I'll mention with technology is most of the institutions up here, we have a program on our end where we can track demonstrated interest. So every time you email a counselor or email admissions, every time you visit the campus or attend an open house, if you talk to me or one of the representatives when we attend a visit to Hamilton Wenham in the fall, that's all tracked and that's all placed into your application file. So it's a great way to show demonstrated interest. If I come and visit, you fill out a card, and then you send me an email about maybe a follow-up question or something that you learned. That's all taken into consideration, and it's really easy for you to do. Another way that technology plays a role is the Common Application. So if you've heard of the Common Application, it's one application that hundreds of schools across the country accept. So it makes it easy for you. You only have to fill out your information and your parents' information one time, and you can send it to several schools. It also is very convenient for your counselors, so they can send us everything through Naviance, if you guys are familiar with that program. So we get all of your high school transcripts, letters of recommendations, and everything sent to us right away. We email all of our decisions to our students. So this is probably a great time to make a new email address. If your email address is something like Soccer Star or Tech something, make it your name or something professional, or even if you want your family to have access to it, make it your last name collegeapplications@gmail.com. And that way you save your password, remember your password. Most of the schools up here, everything is sent through email. So you want to have a professional email address, but you also want to be checking that because at that point, it really is up to you to make sure that we have everything that you need. And you'll also be able to use that portal to check your application status and also to check your decision. So you find out right away what your decision is, and a lot of times you get it right on your phone. In regards to social media, I don't sit there and read through every application and check your Twitter feed and check your Facebook. We just don't have time for that. So I'm not stalking you online when I'm reading your application. But where social media becomes a factor is when you do get accepted to UMass Lowell and a lot of institutions up here. If you still have a Facebook, I don't know, maybe just your parents do at this point, but you get invited to accepted students Facebook page. It's only admitted students at UMass Lowell. It's a private closed group, but once you're in it, you can share any information that you want, post pictures of your pets. Once you find out your roommate, you can friend them and everything, all through that Facebook page. And I would say post what you would want us to know about you. So sometimes students will post something that becomes a red flag, and at that point it's where we might have to reach out to your counselors, and in some cases if it's really offensive and could pose a problem at the university, we could rescind your admission based on what you put on there. So I would just say that everything you post online is permanent, so even if you go in and delete it the next day, there's still history of it. Someone somewhere took a screenshot of it. So just be smart. Don't post anything that you don't want your grandmother to read or the director of admissions. So we're not going to go out of our way to find something out about you, but if you do put it up online, it is something that we would be able to see.
Excellent, thank you. So we have one more set of questions to ask the panelists, a couple toss-up, and then we can open it up to some other questions from the audience. So Tom, how does a college know about Hamilton Wenham?
So one of the ways that we learn about Hamilton Wenham and about high schools generally is schools will often submit what are called secondary school reports. And this is sort of a profile of the high school, right? And so there's lots of information on it. They will often include things like the average standardized test scores for a given class. They might include the average GPA. They might include the GPA distribution. So, what percentage or how many students in the class have a GPA in a specific range, and break it down however they see fit to break that down. They'll also include information about what kinds of classes and extracurricular activities are offered. And this is all really helpful information for us to know about because, again, as we were talking about earlier, we evaluate you in the context of what you've had available to you, right? And so it would not be fair of us to hold you and expect you to have taken a specific class or done a specific activity if your school doesn't even offer it. I mean, if for some reason in a given year, for example, maybe a teacher gets sick and misses most of the school year, or maybe there just isn't availability to offer a specific class, it wouldn't be fair of us to expect someone to have done that class if it wasn't available to them, right? And so the school tells us about that in those secondary school reports. And again, it's just to help us get a picture of who you are and what you've done with what you've had available to you over the course of your high school career. The other thing I would say is that we do actually talk with schools. If we have a question about anything, whether it's something on a transcript or if we have a question about something in a student's application, obviously we'll often reach out to the student directly to ask them for a little bit more information, but we also do work with schools directly. So whether it's a specific teacher, whether it's the college counselor, we get on the phone, exchange emails, and try and get as much information as possible to follow up. And all of this is in the name of trying to give everybody as thorough and careful consideration in this process as possible, and making sure we have enough information to make a really informed decision if a student chooses to apply to our schools.
Great, thank you. Chris, how important are the letters of recommendation?
So as we're diving deep now into the application review, and you're hearing about how we gather information about a school, the letters of recommendation that are submitted for a candidate is another way that we can dive deep about that particular student's experience in a class that might bespeak to the performance beyond what the grade was. I also think the exercise of a high school senior to look a teacher in the eye and say, can you endorse my candidacy? Can you write me a letter of recommendation for Northeastern, Harvard, BC, UMass Lowell? I mean, that's what an exercise that is. I think that's very important for students to do, and I love the fact that our school and many others require students to do this. So we ask for one or two teachers to reflect upon their time with a particular student and talk a little bit about how that student's performance was in the classroom when compared to peers, how they reacted to setbacks, how they won the respect of their peers in the classroom, and how they met the overall requirements of the course. Sometimes that teacher you had a couple times, and that teacher might be able to show your growth over the course of a couple of years that they've got to know you. Sometimes that teacher moderates a club you're in or coaches a sport you're in and can offer a different perspective. Sometimes you might pick a teacher that you didn't get the highest grade from and can talk a little about how you persevered through what might not have been an easy course for you, but you took advantage of what opportunities were there. So all of this stuff is gold when I'm trying to understand, again, how smart you are and what story was behind the performance that you had. Your objective is to go up to one of these teachers when the time is right. And second is to identify the teachers that you know best. Sometimes the teachers whose classes you've aced never really had to spend much time with you. So you need to look at all of your experiences, not just look at the grade you got, but think about the experience that you had with a teacher. That's probably the teacher that's going to be able to give us the most evidence of what the experience was teaching you in the classroom. And finally, I think what we get from that information, I believe after doing this for as long as I have, is that there's two kinds of smart people. They're the smart people that put their heads down and achieve great grades at all costs. And then there are smart kids that achieve, but they bring everybody else with them. They make the classrooms brighter. They make the discussions stronger. They sometimes challenge the prevailing view in a classroom. They make the place better. And it's teachers that have a view of that. And I'm not in a school more than an hour a year. So when teachers can comment about what you mean to the community, that's a great thing for me to understand when comparing you to other students at other schools that may not have made that kind of impact.
Excellent, thank you. Jolie, which admissions test is better, the ACT or the SAT? And is the writing component an admission factor at your school, and how would you look at that?
Yeah, definitely. So speaking about Northeastern, we weigh both exams the same, so it doesn't matter to us if you send us the SAT or the ACT. We look at both of them, and I always like to say that we do super score for each of those. I know some schools might only super score for SAT or ACT. If you've taken the SAT multiple times or you've taken the ACT multiple times, we'll take the top scores from each of the categories and combine those to make the total score, and that's the one we will look at. And we actually no longer look at the writing component of the SAT or the ACT because it has become separate. for the SAT, so we don't consider that as a part of the admissions decision process anymore.
Did any other schools want to comment on SAT or ACT versus SAT? It's okay if you don't.
Yeah.
Okay, similar.
We consider them with similar weight.
Similar way. Okay, excellent. Thank you. Leah, what is the role of parents during the search and application process?
So we touched on this a little bit earlier. She might chime in too, but I think parents are great resources to an extent, right? One, they can help you find and explore. Maybe your parent went to this university, or maybe you have family that live in this area. But as far as figuring out what the kid wants at that point, we need to be speaking with your kid at college fairs. We need to be emailing with your kid and not you. So at college fairs, there's always a time where I'm speaking. It starts out with the family, but then it just turns to either mom or dad explaining everything that the kid does and likes, and oh, he likes this and this, but the kid's standing right there, able to speak for himself or herself. And we want to hear what the kids want. You may have a pretty great idea of what you think your kid's going to do, but they might have something else planned. And so we kind of want to help your students navigate this process, as well as help you navigate it as well. But I think as far as talking in person, we'd love to hear from your kid if he's right there, or she right there. We'd love to hear from your kid when emailing. We actually prefer that, I would say, down the board. You can be there right behind the screen telling them what to say, but we do want to see that it's from your kid. Like she was mentioning, a lot of schools track interest, and so we want to track that from your kid and not the parent. With the application, it's really easy for mom and dad to do the Common App for them, right? But we do not want that. Often, I have a lot, we are not on the Common App, but we have this specific portal, and the parents are like, oh, I don't have their information, so I can't look at it. And I go, okay, well then you'll have to talk with your student to get that login information. And so it's just a matter of, we're here to help make your kids successful and take them along the journey that they are interested in, and we love your help and advice, but only to an extent.
The other thing I'll add to that is, because I've been in the admissions business for about 30 years and the processes have changed pretty dramatically, I think parents' involvement in the process is excellent. I don't think that you should be filling out applications, because oftentimes you'll put the wrong birth date in, which therefore then will affect their financial aid. So if you don't get stuff exactly right, then sometimes the financial aid process is going to get messed up. And so I think if you're going to do it, and I hope that you won't, I mean, it's your sons and daughters who really need to be in the process. And then I'll ask the question, how many of you who are over the age of 20 knew exactly what you wanted to do when you were 19? Can you just raise your hands up? Okay, so one person out of everybody in the office, in the room. So I think what's important is that this is a family discussion. Obviously, financial is a family discussion. But I'm going to have to just add to this that it's become to the point where the families are doing the snow plowing, getting everything ready so Johnny can just walk down the street. And Johnny really needs to do the snow plowing, and you guys can help them walk down the street. Just my own thought. It's been amazing, the involvement of families, in a good way, but sometimes not such a good way.
All right. So Mary, your question, next question. What role does standardized testing play in the admissions process? And what does it mean if a college is test optional?
First question.
What role does standardized testing play in the admissions process?
At Salem State, in the last 3 years, we've become test optional. So that means we do not require a student to submit their SATs or ACTs. If a student chooses to do that, that's great. If they choose not to do that, that's great too. I generally tell a student, when you're applying to a school that's test optional, check off the box that you want to be test optional, but send your scores in anyway, because oftentimes the scores are the deciding factor about scholarships. So sometimes it's just good to check off the box, but send them anyway. Obviously, students' grades, as I think I've said this 100 times already, students' grades and their record of academic success in high school is what is going to be the deciding factor for Salem State for a student to be admitted. And so we have had some students who are like a 2.0 GPA, but have had 1,500 on their SATs. For us, that doesn't really cut it. We've had the opposite. We've had an all-A student, and on their test scores, they might have been a combined score of 750. And we have discovered, based on a lot of students' economic profile from their families, sometimes that is affecting the SAT and ACT scoring, which is why Salem State has chosen to go test option.
Great, thank you. Jess, what support systems are available for students who need help with their schoolwork?
Amy, I think, for one, take advantage of some of these support systems that I do mention. I know for North Shore and probably, or at many of the community colleges and many of probably these institutions as well, things that you may want to consider, tutoring services that are available to you, whether it's assistance with particular problems or, subject areas. I know with North Shore we have online tutoring services as well, so there is an online system that you can access if you aren't able to drop in person. We have academic advisors, so I always like to say that they're the college version of your guidance counselors, but essentially they're there to help guide you in making sure that, obviously you're taking the appropriate courses to meet the requirements for your program, but these advisors can come in different shapes and forms, career advisors, transfer advisors, so that they can kind of have those discussions about, all right, so what do I do next? What am I going to do with this degree? What options are there for me? I'm starting off at a community college and I would like to transfer. Am I on the right track? So taking advantage of those advisors who will make sure that you're getting that support. We find as well through our student support and advising that sometimes students may have trouble just adjusting in general, not just with academics, but over or beyond the academics. And so some of our advisors also serve as crisis counselors as well. If you have any type of learning disabilities, if within at least the academic setting, take advantage of accessibility services, which is what we call it our college. In some colleges it may be disability services. And so they work really one-on-one with students in providing a plan so that they can kind of either continue certain services or work on a plan that's kind of adaptive to your needs, whether that is a learning disability, a psychological, emotional, cognitive. So it runs the gamut, at least for our accessibility services office, and you definitely want to take advantage of that if that's something that you're looking for, and seeing the differences or what a particular institution's office may provide.
Great, thank you. So Jackie, April vacation's coming up for us, and it's a perfect time to go on some college visits. So give us some advice about a college visit. What should we see? What should we do? Who should we talk to?
Yes, so I know one of my colleagues mentioned this already, but just reiterate, you guys are so fortunate to be in a high school in Massachusetts, because 6 out of the 7 schools up here are a very easy, short drive from Hamilton. And we're all so different, and there's a wide variety of institutions in New England, in the state of Massachusetts, whether it's 2-year, 4-year, technical, Catholic, private, public, state, UMass. There's so many opportunities for you guys. And how do you know where to start? So the beginning of the search process for applying to institutions is stepping foot on the campus. So I know some schools out of state, it's a little bit harder to get to, but if you start visiting a large public institution, you're going to realize that that's where you want to be, or you're going to want to look at a small liberal arts school, because that makes the most sense for you, and that's going to help shape where you start that college list and where you're going to apply. Has anybody been on a campus tour already? Anybody start the process yet? No one? Okay, so I would say February and April vacation tours are the busiest times to visit. So that can be good because we have so many opportunities for tours, but it's also could be bad because you could be on a tour with 100 other families and it's less personal. So you have to weigh those options in. If you get placed on a wait list for a tour, just know that if you show up, anyone will absolutely take you on the tour, but it just might be a little bit harder to hear on such a large tour. So at UMass Lowell, we do 3 campus tours daily, Monday through Friday, and most Saturdays as well. But you also have to think if you come on a Saturday, classes aren't going to be in session, so you won't see as many students in the academic buildings. The classrooms that you'll be going to will be empty. If you're coming at 9:30 in the morning on a Saturday, the library is probably also going to be empty too. So you just want to take that into consideration, what you're interested in seeing. And also, we offer tours based on interest. So if you're interested in nursing, sign up for our health science lab so that you can see our nursing facilities. Same with engineering, sciences, our music programs. So really do that research of what time, what day makes sense for you for what you're interested in. We also have open houses. All of these institutions do open houses. Ours fall in October, so typically October of your senior year when you're starting that application process, or at the end, maybe even finishing that application process if you're applying early. Those days, the faculty from all of the departments are there. You get to meet the chair and the dean of the departments. The honors college is there. The clubs and activities that we host are all there. So it's kind of the best day to see everything on campus, what a day in the life of a UMass Lowell student is going to be. And it helps also once you get accepted to the university to come back and visit to really make that. And all of our tours are student run. So these students are in college right now, so they can talk about their current experiences, and they remember what it was like 1, 2, 3 years ago when they were trying to figure out where they're going to attend. So pick their brain, ask them what their favorite part is, what's their least favorite part, what about the food, what about living on campus, what's important to you. And just reiterating what we already talked about, typically parents ask the 10 questions throughout the tour, but is it really what you're interested in? So maybe your parents don't know that you're really interested in the robotics program and that's what you want to learn about. So definitely ask those questions. And I think when you leave the campus, you'll really be able to answer the question that we talked about earlier. Can you see yourself here? And it's going to differ. So your best friend and you could have completely different interests in where you're going for college after high school, and your boyfriend or girlfriend. You guys can go on completely separate paths. So you really need to find what makes sense for you. And I think the only way to do that is just actually step foot on campus.
Great, thank you. I think I'll just do one toss-up because I do want to leave it open if there's any questions from the audience. We're living in some crazy times right now, so I'm wondering if a few of you could just comment on campus safety.
I mean, I'm happy to start because Harvard's in the city, so we are certainly aware of, I think, at times, potential challenges that can come with living in an urban environment. This is our number one priority. I think every school up here would say the same thing, is that the safety of students on campus is our top priority. We are very, very lucky to have resources to make that happen for students. I think most schools will have their own dedicated police departments. Some obviously will kind of liaise with local city or community police departments as well. A lot of schools will also have sort of late night shuttle services at times. They'll have like blue light programs or systems set up throughout campus. I know some will, have a university police officer that you can call and say, I would just love somebody to walk with me across campus to my dorm because I was up late studying at the library. But there's also obviously a lot of training that's given to students when they come to campus, and some of it certainly is common sense, but a lot of it is just reinforcing, things like being aware of your surroundings. And obviously there's challenges that come with living on a campus in any environment, whether it's urban, rural, suburban. And so again, it's just sort of reminding students, I think, sometimes of that and helping them understand that it may be a completely new environment and one that they're not used to, and maybe they're having to take things into consideration that they might not have before. But I think it's sort of a two-part process where we're certainly trying to keep students safe, but also trying to educate them and reinforce at the same time that they can contribute to keeping themselves safe as well.
I think that that was great. I'm a '94 college grad, so if you're of my vintage or around there, the big difference between college then and college now, I think, is what support is given to students about their mental health. Back in my day, if you had a problem, you were expected to kind of work it out, or you had to talk to a professor about it who probably wasn't the best source of information. I think now what all of our colleges do, it doesn't matter where they are and who they serve, adolescents have accrued sometimes more damage by the time they come to college. And the transition sometimes, if it isn't a very clean transition, that's become the norm at some places. So colleges are much more effective now and have far more personnel to work with students about their mental health. That somewhat relates to security, but it's all about the well-being of our students on campus. I also think what we talked about in terms of students with promoting the dialogue in terms of sexual violence on campus and violence towards women and the racial climate on campus. The students that we have at our places are interested in intellectual discourse and dialogue, and I do find that there are a lot more people that are looking for solutions on our campuses rather than problems, and that culture is taking over more and more all of our campuses, and that makes them better places too. So colleges administratively are aware of it, but also students are becoming the self-advocates and are being activists on our campus to make them more vigilant, better places to be.
At Alabama, we have this program called Deans on Call. 60% of our students are from out of state, so they're in the same boat as you, where mom and dad can't come to campus on the blink of an eye. And so if your student does find themselves with a broken leg or is in the hospital for some unknown reason at the time, but is there, one of our university deans will come in a red jacket and will sit with your student and be their advocate to the doctors and medical staff until you do arrive. So we will send someone there. And so that's just a really good program that we have grown since our out-of-state population has grown as well.
Okay, so those are all of my questions. So I'm wondering if anybody from the audience has a question for any of the panelists or the panelists as a group.
Any thoughts in terms of college credit prior to getting college course? How much does that weigh into someone's decisions where it shows ability to do the work, not necessarily advocating just to go out and take classes for that purpose, but if you are kind of on a path that leads you to something that might have, does it affect decisions in any application? How much does it weigh?
Is it, can I have a follow-up?
Yeah, of course.
Is it in addition to courses that are done in high school, or is it do you get out early and go to a class? I mean, not everybody's in a position to do it. If a student's in a position to do it and it furthers their own intellectual curiosity on a certain subject, then sure, these are great things for a student to see. I don't think we have the expectation that every student can do 3 nights a week for a semester in a college class, but I mean, I can't conceive how any of us would look down upon that and say, what a bad choice. What is this? I think these are, if possible, these are good choices. But I don't think it's mandatory in order for a student to distinguish himself academically to do that. Students certainly have enough at Hamilton-Wenham to distinguish themselves academically. This would be either to further something or to add something to a student's academic record that can't be accommodated at Hamilton-Wenham. That would just be my quick reaction.
If you're getting into too many credits, you would be considered a transfer student at Alabama, and then that affects all the scholarships and the housing aspect of it. And so if you are doing too many, then we get issues with that, I guess.
I would say at UMass Lowell, it goes back to the conversation about the rigor of the classes. So the dual enrollment courses are going to be considered similar to the AP classes. So they're the most challenging classes that Hamilton Wenham offers. So if you're taking them at North Shore or another institution, it's again the highest level course that your student could be taking. The other thing is it could help financially if a student's taking courses during high school dual enrollment, and then those will count as transfer credits when they come to UMass Lowell. So as long as they perform well in the courses, it's going to come in as credit. So if they take calculus and coming in for engineering, they get to go right into Calc 2. So that helps them once they're a student on campus at the university.
The only other thing I would add is that, again, I'm a broken record here tonight, but it does depend on the school, because some schools will not give one-for-one credit in the sense that, you cannot come in and say, I have taken this class, whether it's an advanced level class outside of the high school, within the high school, whatever it is, therefore I would like to take one fewer class at your college. Not every school is going to offer a program like that, but some schools will say, that's terrific. Because of that, you have demonstrated that you really know this stuff, and many students or some students need to start out at this level of class, but because you've demonstrated this knowledge and this capability, you start out at this other level of the class. So again, it is definitely just important to consider, within the school and college that you're looking at, if that sort of taking classes outside of the normal track is something you're interested in or have been doing or considering doing, how that will translate to the colleges that you're interested in doing obviously is really important, which is kind of an obvious thing to say, but there's a lot of nuance, is my point.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
Could you speak to subject tests and are they kind of the role that they play in applications at your school? Are they recommended? Are they required? How many, et cetera?
I'm happy to start. So everybody hear the question about subject tests? So for Harvard, they are normally required. And I think, again, just speaking for us, we ask for these subject tests normally because for us, we have seen over time in doing studies of applicants and of current students at Harvard or students that end up enrolling, the subject tests are often very accurate predictors of a student's success academically at our school. So for us, that's why, again, we normally ask for them. There are times when taking a subject test might present like financial hardship, for example, for a family, and we wouldn't want that to be a barrier to a student who is interested in applying. So, but again, they are normally required. And again, they're specific, and depending on the school you're interested in applying to, some of them will be interested in different ones of these tests. So if you're interested, again, in a specific academic program, the school might say, okay, because you're interested in this subject, we really need to see you take a subject test in this particular area. Again, not every school will do that. Some will say, we're just interested in seeing a little bit more information about you as a student. The more info we have, the more informed a decision we can make as we're going through the process. So that's just a little bit about how we view it. I don't know if anybody has any.
In the Massachusetts state system, the Board of Higher Education has implemented some early college programs in dual enrollment, courses that do in fact transfer as college courses, but the student comes in as a freshman with college credit. So we have we have some students who come in with a completion of an associate degree from high school. So they graduate high school and they have completion both. So it really does depend on the school though, because some schools aren't going to take that and transfer credit. Someone like, I think all of us will. So it depends on what kind of school you're looking at.
Okay, other questions? Yes.
Now, I'm just wondering what the major difference in your evaluation of somebody who's trying to come in as a freshman versus someone who's trying to transfer in as a sophomore. Is it mainly what they did in their freshman year, or do you look at the same kind of things that you did when they were applying as a freshman?
For us, it would be the number of college credits that they took. So if they're more than 24, they would be considered a transfer student.
So at UMass Lowell, 50% of our graduates are actually came in as transfer students. So we see a high number of transfer applications every semester, fall and spring. A big piece of that has to do with the mass transfer program that was talked about earlier. But as soon as a student graduates from high school, if they take a course, any course in that next fall, a college course, then they're automatically then considered a transfer student. If a student does a full year and has 24 transferable credits, then we won't require them to submit anything from high school. So it's kind of a clean slate for them. We look at their their college transcripts. How did they do at that institution, whether it was a 2-year or 4-year institution. If they only took a couple courses or they did one semester before realizing that it wasn't the right spot for them, then we probably will still need to see their high school transcripts, and then up to them if they're submitting their SAT scores. The application process is just so much different for us for transfer students. So half the things that we talked about up here wouldn't even be required. So once you're a transfer student, you just have to submit the application, the transcripts, and then a college report just letting us know that you left that institution in good standing and you weren't suspended or anything. So we don't require the essay, we don't require the letters of recommendation, we don't require the standardized test scores. So it just really becomes, how did you do at that institution? Can you perform well? And if so, then yes, we want you here. It is hard to transfer into some majors, so nursing, absolutely no. It's a freshman-only program, so if you are interested in nursing, you have to start as a freshman at UMass Lowell. And then for those engineering and science courses, we want to have seen calculus in the college, and if not, then we'll need to see it in the high school level.
At Northeastern, we require actually all transfer students to submit high school transcripts as well. Excuse me, so that we can see any trends from high school, but also look at a student and how they're doing so far in college, especially if students are trying to transfer after their first or second semester. We don't have enough context or information from their college years, so we still require information from the high school level.
Okay, we have just a few minutes left. Is there one last question from the audience? Okay, well then I thank you very much for coming out tonight. The panelists will be here for a little while longer if you wanted to come up and ask them a personal question. I just threw you out there, so I hope that's okay. Thank you very much. And just a reminder that... And just a final reminder that the school counselors, Ms. Moore and Mr. Fitzgibbons and Ms. Cahill-O'Shea are here for you. So I encourage you to make an appointment to come in and sit with them, with your student, to start talking about this process. So we're here for you. Just give us a shout out. So thank you again for coming out tonight, and good luck with all of this.
Good luck, everyone.